Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda and today we're going to be doing a special double review of Presto and TacTac Jack. If you'd like to watch just the individual reviews, go on down into the description and click on the chapter marker either for Presto or TacTac Jack, because this review is going to specifically compare those two. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with Presto, and Presto is a very simple game, and a game that I'm actually going to explain as part of my game feel. But it is a hectic, crazy, chaotic, fun game of using a GoPOP to do whatever it tells you to do. So for example, if I put down this one, it is telling me to do this pattern. I will then do that pattern, and once I've finished, I will go for this. If I'm the first one to hit it, I get the card. If I'm not the first one to hit it, somebody else gets the card. The first person to 5 cards will win the game. Now, that game is obviously a dexterity board game, and I describe dexterity board games in my review for Flick 'em Up, so if you want to know more about that type of board game, that main mechanic, go ahead to that. This game is not a very strong game, but it does have one spot particularly that I find to be its strongest area, which is the novelty of the mechanics. This game gets a 5 out of 5 in novelty of mechanics. It simply is just such a unique idea to take this very simple toy and make it into a race game with different ideas, that it's just very fun and very good for somebody who's very, very ADHD, because it is so fast-paced. Now, I want to give a quick honorable mention to its second best area, which is simplicity, because this game really does well having different levels for different players. It has these patterns for upper to middle elementary schoolers. It has the number patterns for the early to before elementary school. And then you have, for really, really young children, which finger to use to pop all of them. However, it has 2 categories where it really misses the mark, and that is the mechanical theme and the artistic theme. In both of these categories, I've given it my first ever 0 out of 5. This game has no theme at all. There isn't a theme. So it is truly deserving of a 0 in theme. And it's really sad because you could have done a theme such as code popping. That's what it could have been called, code popping. You pop the codes and then you steal the thing from the middle, or maybe not even steal. Maybe you get it back. You're retrieving it from the bad guys who stole it in the first place. But there is no theme, so it has to get a 0. This game comes out at a 3 out of 5. And I would consider that a bronze recliner, just barely. I would say that this is a game I would only specifically recommend to people who really have a very ADHD child. Let's go ahead and get into TacTac Jack. Now, TacTac Jack used to be called TalkTalk Woodman, then TalkTalk Woodman again, then Click Clack Jack, then TacTac Lumberjack, I believe. It's been under various different names, but recently Fox Mind Games has put out TacTac Jack so that people can enjoy this game yet again. And they've all had the same mechanics, so if you're looking for a review of those other ones, this is the place to be. Now, TacTac Jack is a really fun game, and it's, yet again, just as simple as Presto, so the best way to describe its feel is to show you what it's like to play the game. On your turn, you tac-tac, meaning hit this twice, and it makes kind of a sound that sounds like tac-tac. And your goal is to get these pieces to slide off. Now, as you saw, I did not do that. But you also don't want it to go like that. You want it just to take off those first 2 pieces like I just did. Now, that looked really simple, but it is not. On my first go-through where I showed this video, I actually hit the top piece off on my second hit and would have lost basically all the points I had gotten. This game is very stressful, but not stressful in a way that isn't fun. It's stressful in a way that everybody at the table knows they are probably going to fail, and they're all ready to laugh at themselves and at others that they're failing, because it's just so funny. It's so much fun to watch and so funny. And honestly, I kind of feel like this bird is the best representation of what it feels like to play this game. You're just kind of like, la-di-da, it's fine, the whole tree is falling, it's my home, it's all good, ha ha ha. It's very, very fun. Now, its main mechanic is yet again dexterity, so go on down into the description to watch that flick 'em up video to see what dexterity main mechanic actually means. This game has particular weakness in synergy. Its synergy gets a 3 out of 5, and for one very specific reason. These first couple hits that I did would have scored me -1 point, because each of these pieces is worth 1 point, but this centerpiece is worth -5 points. And I think that was a big mistake. This is a game that really appeals to children, and the fact that if you accidentally, especially as a child, hit the whole thing off, you're gonna lose a point. Not just get no points, but lose a point is rather discouraging, and I think would be very difficult to play with a child. I know I got a little bit discouraged because I often would come out of this game with 0 or negative points. I actually had a game of this where me and another player tied for 0 points, and we won because the other players had negative points. And it just shows how difficult this game is, which is good, but I think that this middle piece, if you were to play a house rule that this middle piece was worth 4 points, -4 points, it would make it so that if you did accidentally chop off the whole thing, you wouldn't get negative points, you would get 0 points. A decent game in that, unlike most children's games, they don't teach children to deal with failure. And this game definitely does, but I think it does it a little bit too much. Now, its strongest point is its energy. It gets a 5 out of 5 in energy. I cannot tell you how much fun we had with this game. It is actually the most fun I believe I have had playing basically any game I have reviewed on this channel. I truly enjoyed playing it. It's so short that I don't feel like I'm having to play a dexterity game forever. It is so intriguing and funny and great that every moment you're laughing at something. You're laughing at yourself or somebody else, or just at the crazy situation that's happened to this poor log by the end of this. It's just a game that brings joy to the table. And that's why I would give this game a 4.3 out of 5, which is my silver recliner. I generally recommend this. I would say that basically anybody looking for a good dexterity board game would not go wrong to buy this game. And the nice thing is, this is a good game to buy if you can't afford Flick 'em Up, because Flick 'em Up's more expensive. This is a $25 game. So I would say if you're looking for maybe a little bit cheaper of a dexterity game, this is a great game to get. Now, I promised that I would compare these two, and I definitely want to compare them, because as you can tell, they're both dexterity games. They're both marketed primarily to kids. I believe that Presto is not a very good children's game. And the reason for this is simple. Children's games often fall into one of two categories when it comes to going wrong. They either have too much theme and no mechanics, or too little theme and all mechanics. For example, Chutes and Ladders has a really actually quite interesting theme by children's game standards, but the mechanics are incredibly boring. And so you're bored by the mechanics, but you're having fun climbing up ladders and going down chutes. So they kind of offset each other. This game is the opposite of that. You have great mechanics, but no theme. There's nothing here that, honestly, you couldn't even just make at home. And that's largely because they didn't do a theme. If they had done a theme, it would have been harder to do at home. And so it's one of those things that I encourage companies like Foxmind in the future, make sure your game has both good mechanics and a theme. Like TacTac Jack. Now, I will admit, TacTac Jack has a small thematic problem of why am I taking off the edge of the tree and not the whole part of the tree. But as it is, the game doesn't have a perfect theme, but it has the theme. And it also has great mechanics. Its mechanics are beautiful and fun, and one of my biggest things I would say in praise of this is, like all great children's things that are truly great, this game is good for adults. And I find that modern people have often lost this idea that you can create something truly enjoyable and wonderful and focused on children that still appeals to adults, where adults can play it and actually have some level of fun. And I can promise you that if you aren't just a stick in the mud, you will enjoy this log. You will enjoy what you're doing with this game. You find yourself saying, you know what? I might even play that with my friends. And TacTac Jack is one of those games. I would actually play this at the beginning of a board game night. I would actually play this with my general regular friends. So, those are my reviews of these two games. Now, my question this week actually has nothing to do with the specific reviews. It actually has to do with how I taped the review. Today, I taped it with a stand, and for the past couple of weeks, I've been taping it, having my wife videotape all of the stuff and zoom in and all of that sort of things. And I think she's done an absolutely excellent job. But I'm wondering, do you guys prefer this style where I'm holding pieces up and where you can kind of see the table and the boxes and the pieces from a stand, or do you prefer the one where my wife is able to zoom in and move around and make the picture change the whole time? And please hit that subscribe button. We are at 94 subscribers. We're almost at 100, and I would love to get to 100, obviously, but also I would love to know what you would like me to do if I reach 100 subscribers. Go ahead and put those suggestions down in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Rest and Reason.